Welcome back to The Real Deal with Kim Hollingshead. This is a radio show that airs every Saturday on SuperTalk 99.7 WTN, and we talk about all things real estate law, business, mortgages, life in general. And this case that involves Afroman, it was particularly fascinating to me because I just thought, wow, if you're a liberal, you're mad that the police raided his home. It was so unfair. This is a Black man who is living with his family. He did absolutely nothing wrong. And this is sort of the pinnacle of police abuse of power. And then if you're a conservative, you're saying, well, wait a minute, I don't want the police to be raiding my home either because I have a right to protect my property. I can tell you right now that if my father was home, this is a man who's a gun-toting, Second Amendment, advocate. He is from New Mexico. He's a gunslinger. He carries. And if the police had raided our home like that and somebody just busted in, started, busting down doors, he might have opened fire on that person. And in some states, like in California, that would result in jail time and criminal charges. Here in Tennessee, luckily, we don't have that because we're a stand your ground state. But the seriousness of this cannot be understated, or overstated. This gentleman and his wife and his children were totally traumatized. He's a very peaceful person. And the fact that the police found absolutely nothing and they actually made the raid just based on an anonymous tip, all of this just feels very unfair. And I can't see very many libertarians or small government advocates who would be in favor of the police using their power in this way. But, Afroman, being who he is, having fun with the situation, he decided that he was not going to be a victim. He decided that he was actually going to use his voice and he was going to speak out on what had happened to him. Because in these situations, sometimes we can feel quite powerless. It's just totally unfair that the police can just come in and do whatever they want to do to us. It does feel supremely unfair. And so what did Afroman do? He said, I've got to make some money because I have to make up for this $20,000 worth of damage to my home. So he took the situation and wrote some songs about them. He wrote some hits such as Lemon Pound Cake.
The Adams County Sheriff kicked down my door. Then I heard the glass break. They found no kidnapping victims, just some lemon pound cake. Mama's lemon pound cake. It tastes so nice. It made the sheriff wanna put down his gun and cut him a slice. Of what?
Will you help me repair my door?
You help me repair my gate. Will you help me repair my door? Did you find what you was looking for? Will you help me repair my gate and door?
Why you disconnecting my camera?
The British are coming. The British are coming. Hide your money. You can't and your woman. White supremacists on my premises. What is this? A racist feminist? Why you disconnecting my video camera? Why you disconnecting my video camera? Why you disconnecting my video camera? We ought to throw crooked dots in the camera.
So this security footage that was obtained is the footage that he used in these music videos. And he became a TikTok sensation. So here he is, a rapper from the 90s. Some people would call him a one-hit wonder, but he's a working rapper, still on tour. And, now all of a sudden, in this new day and age, he's become a TikTok sensation because, the young people, they just loved watching him essentially, get one over on the police. It was amazing just to hear him fight back and to talk about what happened to him. And also because the songs are really funny. They're funny, they're entertaining, they're silly. And it's sort of like this fun approach to taking your power back. I loved it. It's absolutely genius. Well, this is what happened. The police officers who were involved in this raid and were mentioned or their image was used in the music video became quite upset at the situation, and they sued Afroman for defamation and for using their image and their likeness. Now, on the one hand, again, this is so convoluted. This case just really touches on sort of everything. On the one hand, I do agree that their actions at Afroman's property is completely wrong. Okay. I wish that the police had at least compensated him for the property damage, but they were not the ones who were making the call. They were asked to go to conduct this search. They did their job. And now they're the ones who are being publicly humiliated in these music videos when they were not the ones who ultimately made any of the decisions. Something about that doesn't sit well with me. I understand, and I have a lot of compassion. I have a lot of empathy for the police officers and the deputies who were involved in this because, yeah, their lives were really disrupted in a major way. And, is it fair that this happened to them, that he kind of took his feelings out on them in a way that made it in national news? No. But, he did not sue the police department. He used his voice. And in this situation, his voice is just a little bit bigger than the deputies, but they could have used their voice too. And there's just a number of different ways that they could have gone about it rather than suing him for defamation. The amount of the lawsuit, by the way, one of the plaintiffs was claiming $400,000 in damages. I mean, something like this would have wiped Afroman out financially. And that also doesn't sit well with me, okay? He wrote some funny songs. It didn't have to become national news. I think the reason why it's national news is because of the lawsuit and not necessarily the TikTok videos. But the trial itself was an absolute circus. I mean, you have Afroman showing up. He's wearing the American flag on his suit. He's got American flag sunglasses on. We have an ex-wife of one of the deputies testifying as to what, whether or not he was really damaged by this. And then we have, of course, the officer Pound Cake going up there and describing how he had been delivered hundreds of pound cakes, called Officer Pound Cake by people far and wide, and how embarrassed and humiliated he was at having been called that name. So they were quite upset. I think legitimately quite upset, okay? I'm going to validate their feelings here. I would be upset too. I just would not have sued for defamation. Now, what they're saying is that these statements that he made in the music video were false. They were defamatory. Some of them were things like, talking about how he's having, one of the officers was having an affair, or their wife was having an affair, saying that this deputy was lustfully looking at this pound cake, claiming that they had stolen $400 out of the $5,000 that they confiscated from the site. They say none of that happened. They did not do any of those things wrong. And so therefore, this is defamatory, false speech. Well, if you look at it on its face, it is false. Okay. He doesn't have any proof that they stole money. He doesn't have any proof that anybody's wife is having an affair. I would be very upset if somebody was saying that about me. And so how is it possible that he could have won this lawsuit? Because clearly it looks like false defamatory statements. He's clearly using their image in this video, right? It's kind of a no-brainer. Well, this is where all of the musicians out there are going to absolutely love this story. What his attorney claimed is Afroman's music videos were all protected under the free speech laws in this state. So free speech, of course, is protected by the First Amendment. And not all speech is protected. For instance, defamatory speech is not protected, okay? But there is a difference between false, defamatory speech and satire. So satire is when something is so absurd, nobody would ever believe that it is possibly true. It is being used and stated in a way that is intended to make a point, to drive a point across to the audience, and nobody actually believes that what that person is saying in this song or in the written, in a newspaper article, whatever, could possibly be true, okay? Rap music is filled with diss tracks. Of course, we've got examples such as South Park depicting Donald Trump as Satan and being in love with Satan, have boyfriend and girlfriend. Probably the most famous case was when Jerry Falwell sued Hustler magazine because Larry Flynt had written a satirical article in the magazine claiming that Jerry Falwell had done some various things with his mother. Nobody would believe that those things are true, and they're intended to drive a point across. Satire doesn't always have to be funny, but oftentimes it is. And in this case, Afroman was very funny. So the jury decided in favor of Afroman. They said, hey, listen, this is satire. It is protected speech under the First Amendment, and you cannot restrict him from being able to talk about what happened, to him in this situation. And he did it in a way that was funny, okay? And these gentlemen were working as deputies at the time that the raid came out. And so it is a government action that occurred. It was carried out by individuals, and those individuals were included in the satire. Now, when we come back from the break, we're going to break down some of the property law aspects of this case and delve a little bit deeper into what we would have done different in how this could have differently shaken out in Tennessee. Guys, you're listening to The Real Deal on SuperTalk 99.7 WTN. We'll be right back.